Sarah from Floral, and today I'm going to show you guys how to prep your flowers when they arrive. The first thing we need to do is have all our supplies ready. You're going to need a pair of shears. You don't want to use scissors because they'll crush the capillaries of your flowers and prevent them from uptaking water. The second thing you're going to need is a variety of buckets. I have some small ones for the more delicate flowers, and I have some larger buckets for the greenery. You can pick up buckets at a dollar store. Garbage cans work great, but make sure that you have a variety of sizes. You're going to want to fill your buckets with clean water and make sure you clean your buckets before you start. So now I'm going to start unpacking my flowers. As you can see, they come in plastic, a lot of them, or they come in this sort of mesh net. The roses come wrapped in cardboard and plastic, and roses are a little bit more particular for unpacking, so I've made a separate YouTube video to tell you how to unpack your roses. So I have here on my table a couple of different products. I've got Novia roses. I have peach hypericum. I've got 3 different types of eucalyptus here. This one's silver dollar, this one's parvifolia, and this one is baby blue. And then I also have some ranunculus, some white statice, and some mini carnations. So you're gonna want to take the plastic off your flowers and do this very carefully. These ranunculus are gorgeous, but they're very, very delicate. So our ranunculus is going to have its own particular container, which is this small one here, just to make sure that it doesn't get crowded at all. Once you've unpacked your flowers, you're going to want to take your shears and you're going to want to cut about 1 inch off the bottom at an angle. You want to do this a quick snip so that we have the cleanest cut possible. Once you've cut the stems, put them into your container. Next, onto my statice. I'm just going to use my shears to just loosen up this plastic here. And then same thing, I'm going to cut the ends and place it into their bucket. So you can see here, this bucket is a little bit too tall for the statice, so choosing the correct bucket size is important. If the bucket's too tall like this, gravity is going to pull it downwards, and after you leave them in a bucket that doesn't support them for a few days, you're gonna see the flowers begin to droop because gravity is pulling them downwards. So that's why you need to make sure that they have the correct size bucket. So this one here is a much better size for the statice. I've got my mini carnations here that I'm going to unwrap next. These ones fit much better in that little container there. As you can see, I kind of have a separate container for each of them. It's because I want to make sure that my flowers don't get crowded. For greenery, it's much more hardy, so you can easily put all 3 of these greenery into a bucket by itself. You don't have to worry about that. So now that I've cut the ends and put each flower into their own dedicated bucket or combining the greenery, it's time to start prepping the stems. Some flowers, like this hypericum here, have a significant amount of leaves on the stem. That doesn't look great in your bouquets. So what you're gonna wanna do is remove all of these leaves and put them into the compost. It helps if you have a garbage can handy so that you can just go quickly from your table to the compost. So removing these leaves is quite easy. You're just pinching them off. I find it easier to do this when I'm prepping the flowers because when you're in bouquet mode, you just want to get arranging. You don't want to have to fiddle around with all these silly little leaves. Some flowers, like the statice, don't have a ton of leaves. So you can see on this one, there's nothing really to remove. So these are just good to go. My carnations, they have these kind of odd looking leaves here. I'm gonna take those all off because I don't like how they look. So again, just doing this to all your flowers, prepping them so when you are ready to do bouquets, you can go straight to arranging. So the three mistakes that I find people do the most often is number one, people crowd their flowers. So your flowers need space to move and breathe. They don't like being squished together. When flowers come, they often are closed. So these carnations, for example, they barely have any of these blooms open. Half of them at least are closed. So if you squish them, they're not going to be able to open into their full size. The second mistake I see people making is choosing the wrong size bucket. So putting too tall of a flower into too short of a bucket, or people do the opposite too. These delicate little ranunculus, if you put them inside this big bucket, their heads are going to be hitting the plastic. The third mistake I see people make is not creating dedicated containers for the delicate flowers. Delicate flowers are things like anemones and ranunculus. Those are gorgeous, but they're also finicky. So you have to make sure that they have their own dedicated space so they don't get crushed. As you guys know, flowers come from nature, and nature isn't perfect, so that's okay. As such, you should expect to see that your flowers may be a slightly different color, and that depends on temperature, weather, where it's grown, all sorts of different factors. The other thing that you should know is not every single bloom is going to be perfect. You should expect to see about 5% of your blooms be a little bit off, but that's just how nature is. 95% of them are going to be in peak condition. Flowers take a couple days to open. Like this carnation here, where only half of the blooms are open, it takes about 2 to 3 days for them to open. If you have carnations that you want to open up a little bit more and you're running out of time, you can always just take your fingers and just carefully tease them open. This is a carnation thing. Other flowers are not as forgiving when you come to teasing them. For roses, if you want them to open, you can always just take them and blow gently into them, and that will cause them to open up. The other thing that impacts how flowers open is light and temperature. So when you get your flowers, you want to keep them in a cool, dark room, like a basement or a spare bedroom. But if you're wanting them to open up more quickly, you can place them outside for a couple hours or place them in a sunnier spot. The opposite is true too. If you want them to not open, that's where the cool, dark room comes in. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, put them below and visit ufloral.ca for your DIY flower needs.